Welcome to this keynote on the overall software strategy and our efforts to increase collaboration with the LabVIEW community. I am the software director at NI. I am also a LabVIEW architect, and I've been at NI about 19 years. So I think I've got a lot of exciting updates to share with this group, and I definitely want to leave time for questions and for feedback. Feel free to post those in the chat as I'm sharing this update, and I'll do my best to incorporate those. And as I mentioned, leave time at the end. Okay, so I want to start. Actually, I want to use this time to circle back on some of the messages from last year. So, some of you may remember I had actually just come into this role and I outlined some of the plans and goals for the overall software team and for the software strategy. I want to give an update on those as well as speak to some of the investments that I'm personally most excited about that some of you may have seen and or are coming in forthcoming releases of LabVIEW and our software platform. And anytime we're sharing our roadmap and a look ahead, of course, we want you guys to be excited and aware of what we're working on, but we also really want feedback because that directly informs our plans and how we choose to invest in the products and the overall ecosystem. Okay, but to start with, I want to make something very clear, and that is our focus on LabVIEW and the role LabVIEW plays in really serving NI and Emerson's business interests. And what you've seen is a renewed investment into our software platform and especially LabVIEW. And this is born out of leadership's recognition of the criticality it plays to our mutual success and for our users. And so Ritu has said this on stage at NI Connect. I think if you were at NI Connect either this or the previous year, you would have heard the word LabVIEW said many, many more times than perhaps it had been said in prior years. So this speaks to our renewed focus, which means more investment, and also drives a lot of the activities we'll be talking about today. And I think that was a reaffirming content that a lot of us LabVIEW aficionados and advocates really appreciated hearing, and also should help understand in this post Emerson world what the future holds. I think there was a lot of questions and uncertainty as a result of NI being acquired by Emerson, but what you're seeing is reaffirmations of the reason that Emerson saw so much value in NI, and really the core of it was our product-based business and the role LabVIEW has served and continues to serve in really creating differentiation that is unmatched in the test and measurement landscape. So our software strategy derived from this that you've heard us talk about at NI Connect and various other forums is shown here. And anyone watching this that thinks to themselves, man, I've seen this slide so many times, hopefully it's viewed as a good thing that this has not changed and that this is consistent and has been consistent now for the better part of the last 18 months. And I don't foresee it changing anytime soon. So I'm going to spend time in all three of these pillars talking about what we've been doing and some of the key updates. For some of you who feel like you've seen all this before, I think I have some new and exciting updates to share with everybody here. So don't tune out quite yet. But we're going to start with strengthening software, and we're going to look at some features that are coming out in the next version of LabVIEW, inclusive of course, AI. I'm going to explain what we mean by connected workflows, and then my personal favorite as the community leader, we're going to talk a lot about building a community which is inclusive of user events, but also open source, and a renewed focus on academia and student pipelines. So let's dive in. Okay, first topic, strengthen software. So rather than just go directly into a litany of new features and I want to paint the picture with regards to the themes that are driving investment. I've used some version of this slide in many public forums over the last year or so. And it's important to note that these themes have shifted, the priorities have evolved and changed. And a big part of that, again, is because we are doing our best to prioritize our activities based on feedback from our users and based on our understanding of what is most urgently needed. Now, this is also not a reflection of just a single product release or a single cycle of work. This is really a multi-year, multi-release initiative. And what you will see is progress being made in these categories over time with multiple releases. And I like to pick on collaborative workflows as a favorite topic of mine. And you'll see that we've done things to make incremental improvements to how people work together on teams of users, but we know our work is not done. And I will explain some of the investments that we are making with an eye towards the future. Okay, so we can come back to the slide. I invite questions and feedback on this slide. If you feel that there is a theme or a category that may be missing from this slide, I definitely want to encourage you to share your thoughts and comments either in the chat or at the end when we have time. Now, in terms of the specific investments, I want to paint a picture about our users and what we feel they need. And to that end, I like this slide and how it shows what I would describe as a typical progression of a LabVIEW user. Because for the better part of the last almost 40 years, LabVIEW is really focused on enabling domain experts, enabling engineers, and typically mechanical, electrical engineers, chemical engineers, physics majors, people that would not normally identify as software experts. And of course, we sought to give them the tooling and the capability to quickly get data and talk to instrumentation and do something meaningful with that, be it control or measure, et cetera. And that's really what's meant by the left side of the spectrum, right? Quickly and easily getting those real world signals into a computer to then derive value from them. But the reality is, some people are so wildly successful in doing that they're quickly given additional responsibility. Hey, add these features, right? Serve this internal client, support this new device, support this new test. And due to their own success, we've seen it over and over again where the scope and the requirements and the sophistication of the test software quickly grows. And so, whereas they may not have historically identified as a software engineer, and certainly not as a computer scientist, they end up almost accidentally becoming one as the scope, capability, sophistication, and team size associated with their software rapidly grows. And so, again, I would describe this as a typical progression that we've seen, especially at some of our larger accounts throughout the years. And as we invest in the product, we acknowledge the importance of serving users across this spectrum. There are certainly plenty of users that are still on the left side. You know, they're an individual just doing basic instrumentation. But as more and more of our users move to the right, we want to make sure that we're investing to serve that end of the spectrum as well. And so that gets into topics like source code control, collaboration, CI/CD workflows, operational excellence, and also drives a level of sophistication in the architectures that gets into actor-based models. So think workers, actor framework, DQMH, et cetera. Think automated code analysis, et cetera. So when we look at the new features coming in the platform, again, it spans this spectrum. And one final comment before I move on. If you can self-identify as being in one of these phases, sometimes it's interesting to look ahead and think about what technologies or tools may increasingly become relevant, and you may want to proactively incorporate it into your workflow if you anticipate the software becoming more sophisticated and your scope of responsibility expanding. Anyway, moving on. Oh, all right. So LabVIEW 2025 Q1 obviously released earlier this year, and we are on the precipice of releasing the Q3 version next month. So just a few short days or weeks away. And there's a lot of new features coming in LabVIEW 2025. Again, demonstrative of our renewed focus on the product. I'm not sure why the animation stopped. There we go. As you look at this, know that there are more things here than I will have time to cover. I am going to highlight a few personal favorites, but perhaps most importantly, all the items in blue are actually from the Idea Exchange. And if you feel like we hadn't been looking at the Idea Exchange for the last few years, you are right. That has changed. I believe there are 13 new features from the Idea Exchange. There is a Monday morning review of Idea Exchange submissions every week. So I strongly encourage you to go to the Idea Exchange, vote on ideas you like, or post any additional suggestions that you may have. All right, so let's take a look at some of these features. And I'm just going to highlight a few again of my personal favorites. When asked, many of our users cite debugging as one of the most differentiated tool sets and one of the biggest reasons that they value LabVIEW. Even just the front panel itself is an incredibly useful debugging tool. But again, going back to that spectrum, as users go to the right, some of the tools like the probe watch window and the breakpoint manager become cumbersome if you're trying to traverse a large hierarchy and lots of VIs. And so we've actually consolidated the breakpoint manager and the probe watch window into this single new debug window that will be coming out in the Q3 release, again, just a few weeks down the road. And so you have a single pane where you can now manage all your breakpoints and probes. But we've also added a lot of functionality that was requested directly into this window. So you can, for example, export the data from a probe to the clipboard. You can also actually rename probes and breakpoints to make it easier to understand and see which probes you actually care about. You can also actually see the data value on the wires and hide this probe watch window from the visible field of view. So there's a lot here designed to make it easier to traverse and understand your probes and your breakpoints. And for anyone that wants to get their hands on it, you can see it in the beta program or in the release of LabVIEW that's coming out here shortly. Note that the breakpoint window still exists. We haven't taken it out, but we certainly will evaluate that because we fully expect this to replace the need for the the breakpoint manager as a separate dialog. Okay, another feature I want to highlight. Many of you here probably share my, we'll say, disdain for automatic error handling and the pop-ups. So many of us turn that off by default, but it can happen that you don't always handle errors correctly, and there is value in being able to understand if and when that occurs without disrupting the operation of your application. So one thing we've added to this latest release is a new option to actually log unwired errors. And so here you can actually see if you enable log unwired errors, it will automatically record these unwired errors in a log file. And this is actually independent of the automatic error. So you can still turn off that end product pop-up dialog that many of us don't love. And then rest assured that any unhandled errors will be logged on disk. And this is true both during the development environment and during runtime application in executables or PPLs. Let me see if there's any. Yes, Hunter, they are. In fact, I will tell you, I will confess, I was in France last week at NI Days. Someone asked me this question. I did not know the answer, and I believe it was Mateus Badeau who quickly looked it up and told the audience, yes, it is. It does also work in executables and PPLs. Okay. Here's a popular one, or here's one that I just really want to emphasize, because again, there's a lot of new features. Some people really want Zoom. Some people don't like Zoom. Whatever. The point is, I know that many of you watching are not going to instantaneously upgrade your source to 2025 Q3 the day it comes out. I understand that, especially if you're on the right side of that spectrum, you have to revalidate your code, you have to test your code. You also, frankly, probably don't want to go through the upgrade experience or installation of VMs. My point is, upgrading LabVIEW, and especially your application, is a non-trivial activity, not to be taken lightly. But we have done, we've made an important change to the editor that actually came out in Q4 of 2024 that decouples the source version from the editor. So you can actually tell the LabVIEW project to stay in any version of LabVIEW going back to 2017 as you upgrade your development environment. This means that you can ensure that your code does not get upgraded. Your team members can continue to work in older versions of LabVIEW. You can use Zoom. You can use the new features I just showed you, but your source will stay in whatever version you define. This is a project level setting. And importantly, it was made possible by the recent work to actually enable version independence of drivers and toolkits. So it saves it in place, and there is actually warnings that appear in the ADE to let you know if you've tried to do something or incorporate some syntactical element that is not compatible with the version of LabVIEW you selected. There are caveats here, so it's not applicable for FPGA or real time. And if you are generating a binary, you will have to use that specific version of the ADE to then compile for your executable or PPL. I know many people use some sort of automated Git runner or automation workflow to generate their binary. So you would just want to use that intended version of LabVIEW in that runner, and then your development environment on your personal laptop or workstation could be the latest and greatest version of LabVIEW, and again, wouldn't force you or your teammates to upgrade your source version. I see some of the comments, Derek. I want to acknowledge your feedback because I guess you've had some problems with reentrancy. I think that's a great example of we need to focus on addressing these issues to ensure the usability of the features. As you find those corner cases and problems, please do continue to let us know, because this should be a really critical enabling technology for giving all users access to the latest versions of the editor without forcing the source to be upgraded. Okay, let's keep going. We've also maintained our focus on ensuring you can interoperate with the latest versions of Python and .NET. So the Q1 release of LabVIEW 25 now supports Python 3.11 and 3.12, and it also adds support for .NET 8. This is an ongoing body of work, and will actually eventually enable us to call .NET assemblies from LabVIEW for Linux, because of course .NET 8 is cross-platform. But in the latest release of LabVIEW, this will enable you to build applications, pack project libraries, and source distributions that are using .NET 8. And then finally, as you get more to the right side of the spectrum, team-based development has become a really big focus for us. We've heard from a lot of our key accounts about the importance of enabling all the standard workflows that people expect and use with other tools and languages. As we'll talk about here in a minute, when it comes to our open source initiatives too, that is also driving us to make sure all the best-in-class practices that are really required to do open source code development at scale are equally enabled. Some of the more immediate investments include making the diff tool, which has existed in LabVIEW for, I believe, the better part of 2 decades, making it more usable by helping you sort through the noise and the results, helping you make sure that you can easily export the insights and attach that to a pull request, be it the images or the entirety of the document. So there's a number of improvements to how the data is displayed, grouped, categorized, annotated, and color-coded in the report itself. You can then also create these reports that are intended to be something you can easily drop into your pull request. When diffing individual VIs, you can see that you can actually copy the left and right images to the clipboard, again, with the intention of making it easier to import into a pull request, as shown in this particular example. And as I alluded to earlier, many of our users try to run a diff report or maybe unit testing or static code analysis as part of some sort of automated Git activity or Git runner. Many of our users, I would venture most of our users that automate this, do it with a VM. However, we've heard from some IT organizations that they actually insist that people use Docker. And so the release of the Q3 version of LabVIEW 2025 will include the publication of a predefined Docker container to Docker Hub. So it will then allow you to configure activities via the CLI using YAML, as shown here, to do things like static code analysis and unit testing. Importantly, it is just LabVIEW for Linux, but this also is just the start. So yes, Jan, this does have the CLI. So we're using our CLI to instrument and control the LabVIEW instance that's in this headless Docker container. But I want to acknowledge too that there will be an ongoing investment as we look at the viability of Windows. Microsoft has notably enabled Windows in a Docker container. And of course, your full stacks, if you're using drivers and kernel level dependencies, will require that as well. And that will also enable automated build processes in a Docker container. So for now, we're starting with Linux. Of course, you can also get into some interesting speculation about containerization of LabVIEW code and the advent of technologies like gRPC to help you dynamically scale up and scale out the test software itself. But the intended use case, at least for right now, is really, again, on those automated collaboration workflows, testing and analysis. But I would, again, cite this as just the start. And we're curious for feedback on how you want to use this or any challenges you have either with the CLI or the container itself as we seek to expand this effort. All right. One final area of investment that's worth mentioning is security. There are a lot of regulations and even laws coming from regulators, especially in Europe, as cybersecurity becomes an increasingly critical part of really any software application. So know that we are investing a considerable amount of resources into all the things that these regulators want and expect. We've gotten a lot of really positive feedback from stakeholders that have to work with and service those regulators, even down to like the format and organization of the information we provide. So if this is not of concern to you, don't worry about it. If it is, feel free to engage at ni.com/security. You can connect directly with the leadership team that's driving this, request any of the artifacts or documentation that your organization, IT departments, or regulators may require. And as with the other topics, this will be an ongoing area of focus for us. And see Sam's efforts. No need to wait for. Okay, I like it, Sam. I'm gonna check that out after this. Hey, anytime the community can do things faster, better than us, I am all for it. And please let us know how and where we can help fill in the gaps, which is kind of a philosophical tease around the open source initiative and why we are doing that. All right. So finally, again, idea exchange. Post your comments. Vote on things that are there. And know that this is something that we are looking at regularly with renewed attentiveness. All right, one of the other big areas of investment from a strengthened software perspective is AI. And so anyone that was at NI Connect in the last 2 years would have heard us talk about Nigel. This most recent NI Connect, which I guess was in May, we announced that we will be shipping Nigel in July. So again, just a few short days and weeks away. Now, it's really important to note that I think, of course, we can talk about what Nigel's capable of now, but perhaps most striking is if we plot a line between what it was capable of a year ago and what it's capable of now, and we extrapolate based on the exponential increase in performance and capability of the underlying AI technologies we're using, which notably right now are ChatGPT 4.1 on Azure hosted infrastructure. So today we're really focused on that new user experience. So going back to that spectrum, really that left side, helping users understand the ADE, understand the code, maybe inherit code from somebody else. But we will continue to invest in AI, both from a development workflow perspective and with an eye towards some of these other adjacencies and workflows that we think many of you will benefit from having AI assistants with or advisors with. So think how you derive value from your data, how you specify your system and determine the most appropriate hardware configuration, even set the limits in your test software. So for those of you that are excited to get your hands on it, and of course, you can use the latest version of LabVIEW, keep your source and the older version, but it will be first shipping in LabVIEW and Test Stand professional versions. And this will be a integrated experience directly into the products. You can ask it questions about your VI, about the editor, and Test Stand. You can actually have it help you configure and navigate environmental settings. But again, this is a first release, really focused on that new user experience. We're excited to get your feedback and engagement. And we know that this announcement naturally drives a lot of questions around how you may want to use it, your specific model of choice, the infrastructure and data protection. So I do want to acknowledge some of those questions right out of the bat. This is an advisor that will live on Emerson's secure cloud platform. That is an Azure-based infrastructure. That means for you to be able to use it, it does require connectivity to the internet, specifically to the public cloud. Nothing about your data or your code will be stored or used for training. Over time, you can expect that we will provide more options for where you may want to host it, the models that you may want to use. So again, we're just getting started, and some of the topologies, like for example, those of you that work in secure facilities that have a secure instance of your own model, know that of course we have customers that will want and expect that type of usage model, and we will be enabling that in short order. We also know that not everybody adheres to the same coding practices and style guidelines. So it's also reasonable to assume that over time you will be able to train Nigel for what you care about and how you want to use it and what you consider best practices for your code. Nigel does not do any code generation in this initial release, but of course that is in our roadmap. And as it gets smarter and more capable, of course that really serves some of these other aspirational uses that you can expect to see in future releases. I've also often been asked how often you can expect updates to Nigel. There is the experience in the products, and then there is the backend technology. The backend technology can learn and become more capable independent of what you see in the product. But of course, any changes to the user interface will be coupled to releases or updates to the product themselves. There is actually the ability to turn off Nigel using a registry key. So, Damien, I see your question. You can turn off anytime you so desire if you decide it's not helpful or you don't want it. I do want to give you a deeper look at some of the specific use cases. I love it when PowerPoint doesn't format slides correctly. Forgive that overlapping text. But Nigel will run in a separate dialog. You can launch it either from the help or from the context help. So one of the popular demos we like to show is actually highlighting a sub VI or the VI you're looking at and discussing it with Nigel. It then has the full context of that VI, and you can ask it questions about how it's organized, patterns it uses. I've even asked it to do things like help me generate documentation I can pull into my block diagram. And I encourage everybody here to play around with it, share your thoughts and feedback, what you like, what you don't like, and help us understand how we can ensure it is a valuable advisor for you in your daily workflow. Many of our users identify with being given code and asked, hey, fix this bug and add this capability. You know, Bob's retired or onto a different project. Please maintain his code for him. And so one of the initial use cases is really being able to understand somebody else's code, how it worked, and ask it questions to help identify how you might go about adding functionality. If in a scenario, perhaps a developer or maybe even yourself didn't add sufficient documentation to the block diagram. Another workflow that Nigel seeks to serve in LabVIEW is semantic search. So many of us use Quick Drop as our go-to tool, especially if you're an architect, you know exactly what you want. There is no faster way. Sometimes if you're not sure, you sit there and browse the palettes, but candidly, that can be there's a lot of palettes and subpalettes. So one of the other places we've integrated Nigel is search. And so maybe, you want to save data, but you don't know the exact name of the file or the sub VI. Here you can see it's actually doing a semantic search, and Nigel will help you either place that item or find it in the palettes. So a great example of how it helps to teach in addition to, teach the environment as well as teaching how the code works. A few other examples. Can help you locate settings and explain the environment. You can even discuss like Nyquist theory and how best to acquire data, etc. And when it comes to test stand is equally guilty of a lot of complex settings and menus and submenus and dialogues and tab option. And so there again, I think Nigel's incredibly useful for helping you change the configuration or find where that configuration is set. Okay, so that was my preview of some of the investments when we talk about strengthening software. Plenty of other examples I could go into with more time, but I do want to move us along because I have a lot to cover with regards to connected workflows and the community itself. When it comes to connected workflows, I want to be clear about what this means. This means that whereas, of course, LabVIEW is the most important tool in our portfolio, and why many of you are here, it is often used in collaboration with other tools, be it TestStand, Veristand, Instrument Studio, or SystemLink. And these tools need to be integrated together to serve our customers' workflows. And this pillar of our software strategy is really meant to elevate the importance of ensuring these tools are not built in isolation, but in fact, we understand how they are used together to serve some really important workflows. A great example of that is actually Instrument Studio. Instrument Studio is a free tool. It is free. And it is a really compelling tool for the configuration and debugging of PXI. So, of course, I can brag about all the benefits of PXI, but one of the notable challenges of it is you do not have that instantaneous power-on experience of a interactive screen, buttons, and knobs, except now you do. So Instrument Studio is a software product built to allow you to dynamically and automatically compose that front of the panel experience. So you can instantly see your DMM, your waveform generator. You can see it's composed an example here, but this is dynamic based on what hardware it detects in your system. And without any coding, you can instantaneously be acquiring data, saving it to disk, etc. So this is also important because we've actually made changes to our drivers to share the driver sessions on the back end. So this becomes a really powerful debugging tool, because when stuff doesn't work, is it your software or is the hardware not configured correctly? Well, you can take the software out of the loop, open Instrument Studio, and instantly begin to debug your setup. So again, a free tool, a great example of our focus on connecting these workflows, because then as you build out these experiences, you can use it to complement debugging a test stand or LabVIEW instance. You can also then use Instrument Studio Professional to create custom soft front panels and even do test sequences for things like sweeps that can then be integrated into test stand for further automation. So we go from configuration debugging of a LabVIEW instance to actually defining these sweeps and automated sequences. Because it uses the same sequence engine technology on the backend as test stand, you can then import those into test stand and further customize the appearance or the logic of those sequences. So a really powerful tool that gets into integration with all these other products, as well as Diadem and SystemLink for the data that you then capture with it. Another really compelling and exciting tool that many of you may have heard of is SystemLink. And SystemLink has historically served those of you with especially large installations. But if you go back to that spectrum, there are plenty of users that, let's say we're on that second or third category, so they have 5 systems or 10 systems. And so historically, the complexity of standing up a SystemLink instance was too much, because it requires Kubernetes infrastructure and IT collaborations. So the really exciting announcement with SystemLink is that we have now made it far more accessible for the small to medium lab. So now for the starting price of $7,500 USD, you can install it directly on a Windows Server laptop and connect up to 10 systems. And so this can be used for making sure all those 10 systems are calibrated, running correctly, seeing live data, but also pushing software configurations to those systems. This SystemLink was born out of an acknowledgement that as our users' applications grew, there was a lot of sneaker netting of drivers and runtimes and packages and your updates and PPLs and all those things. And so SystemLink is an incredibly capable tool to help you manage, see, and track the quality, the state, the health, the asset, the performance. It also scales because it has its pedigree in these very, very large systems. If your system grows beyond those 25 systems, SystemLink can too. So again, really trying to make that more accessible to the average user. And SystemLink is a great example of it. Integrates directly with TestStand, LabVIEW, and Periston, all these other products to make it easy to serve up your data. I also want to announce LabVIEW Plus Suite for HIL, which simplifies the delivery of RT, FPGA, and LabVIEW, and also does things like integrate native Veriston steps into TestStand, again, fulfilling the promise of that connected workflow. Anyway, there's a lot more when it comes to all of these products and the roadmaps. I do want to move us along to community. So I invite everybody here to visit our published roadmaps on ni.com. This is also an important change. Our product management team, our R&D teams have committed to keeping the next 2 releases of new features published on ni.com so you can see what's coming. This is obviously has the benefit of helping you understand what to expect, but it's really an invitation to give us feedback. You can reach out to any of the software leaders like myself, but there's also a form directly on that webpage where you can share comments and thoughts on what you might want to see or what you might feel is missing. And that's published for all of our software platform. So please do check that out, bookmark it. It will be kept up to date as our plans progress and time marches by. Okay, community. Sorry, I see Theodore Blaga. Are you going to support old equipments into Instrument Studio like RF VSTs? So most of our current modular instrumentation is supported. It's based on the drivers. So if the latest version of the drivers support those devices, they should work. In general, if you want to talk about third-party devices, that's where you may want to create your own custom front panels with Instrument Studio Pro, because then you can talk to any device you so desire. Anyway, let's move on to talking about the third and final pillar of our software strategy, and perhaps the most relevant for this audience, so where I hope to spend most of the time, building community. So there are really 6 pillars of this strategy, and they're all aimed at engaging our user base, because we acknowledge that for a few years there throughout the the pandemic and with our focus on the systems business, we stopped doing a lot of these core things that I think at the time we didn't properly value the importance and the impact they drove for the overall LabVIEW ecosystem. So when I was here, I guess roughly a year ago, you would have heard me announce a a let's call it a prototype version of this strategy, but it has really evolved to revolve around these 6 pillars. I think we've made some really exciting progress in a few key areas. I'm going to start with user events. User events, which is really user groups, has more than quadrupled since this time last year. And this is a heat map of the public regional events that are currently available and promoted live on NI's website. If you scan that QR code, it should take you to the page where you can find all these user events in the area near you. Now, what's not shown here are the account-based events. For those of you that work at larger organizations, we're working with our account teams and our partners to actually organize user groups for those dedicated accounts. But we are keen to further expand this effort. And so we are now at over 80 quarterly user groups. Again, people getting together every 3 months to talk shop, talk LabVIEW. The average user group, I would say, is 20 folks or so, and it's amazing how compelling pizza and beer can be for some of those evening events. However, I also want to acknowledge we've seen some incredibly large user groups. At the risk of alienating those who I don't call out, Marco Schmidt, I know, runs the user group in Switzerland. That's about 150 folks getting together for a full day, and they get together once a year. So the format can vary widely. I recently attended the Alarm user group in Boulder, and that was restarting an older user group that had stopped meeting throughout the pandemic. And they're getting together quarterly in the evenings. Chicago, that was a great one that was at a year ago. So I'm trying to get to as many of these as I can, or perhaps more scalably send our technical team members to attend and participate. But a lot of these are run by the community. Now, we do a lot of things to help, and I want to, this is an open invitation for anyone that's thinking about creating a user group. My team exists to make this as easy as possible. So we can buy pizza, we can do promotion, both in product and online. We can help find presenters and content. And as we look to 2026, we want to provide more technical resources. We want to increase the participation of area NI resources, notably as we've brought back sales or geo sellers, mainly, really across all 3 regions. A lot of these folks are engineers with technical backgrounds. Many have been with the company for many, many years. So we expect those folks to be available to help. We also have new GSEs or geographic sales engineers who are technical, come give demos. We have our TSEs, we have our FAs, lots of, unfortunately, too many acronyms. The point is we have more technical resources across the world, and we want to equip them to be collaborators and come in and talk about new product capabilities or whatever advanced topics your user group may benefit from. Of course, many of you do not need our help or collaboration because you have fantastic content that you and your colleagues put together, and we celebrate that. So know that we are here to help in any way we can, if and when we can. One thing too is we actually came up with a bunch of new LabVIEW swag, and I don't have my LabVIEW coffee mug on me, but we also want to get that out into the world as quickly as possible. So we have pins and screwdrivers, and we want to get some stickers and some coffee mugs. Anyway, if you organize a user group or are thinking about organizing a user group and would benefit from us sending a care package of some of those items, do let us know. And we will work on scaling that up over time. So I do want to highlight some of the call it super user groups, starting with GDevCon. So I meant to go in chronological order, so forgive me, because this is actually further away than the US one. But GDevCon Europe, which is the OG of GDevCons, is really the user group of all user groups. This will be their 6th event. Last year it was in Stuttgart. I was delighted to have the chance to attend and engage with so many folks there. I think there were just shy of 200. This year it'll be in Brighton, UK, right there on the coast. I will be September 9th through 11th. I believe there are workshops before and after. Scan that QR code to learn more and sign up before I think they run completely out of space. But it's an awesome event. It's a LabVIEW Love Fest. I think everybody learns a lot by being there. Please, Eric Schaefer. I assume that question is about user groups. Eric, start with me. I have a whole team of folks that are helping to support these events. So depending on where you are, I can have you work with the right program manager. But elijah.kerry@emerson.com, and I will get you set up to help support your user group in whatever way you need. Oh, there is also a user group leaders network page that is public on our community site. I don't have a QR code to take you there. That's an oversight by me, but that's also a page to engage with all the other people that run user groups and find content. If anybody listening can get that link for me and post in the chat for Eric, that might be the most effective way to ensure he gets plugged in. But if nothing else, reach out to me. Anyway, GDevCon, it's awesome. Be there. This one's in September. One thing that the European event does that I really like is they have these huddles formats. So you have the technical content and people get together to discuss, share ideas. They will also have discounted certification exams. So if you're interested in becoming a LabVIEW developer, LabVIEW architect, or getting your certification renewed, that's a great forum to do that in person. Same for the US event. So this is coming up sooner. As I mentioned, my chronological order was messed up. But July 22nd and 24th in Chicago. So Chicago is beautiful in the summer. I will be there. Oh, another important point too is that NI is making an effort to send a lot of our R&D team and TSE to be there to engage with our user base in a very technical forum. So really want to maximize the value of those engagements from an NI perspective. And if you have thoughts, comments, questions for our R&D folks, please come prepared. I think some of them are giving technical sessions too. As with the European event, the US event will have certification exams available. You can see the list there. Go to the website, GDevCon NA, and please register to attend or sign up for a certification exam. Thank you so much, Tom, for posting that. Yes, anyone who is interested in learning how to organize a user group, that is a page dedicated to user group organizers. So sign up there, but also reach out to myself and the team. We'll be happy to support your efforts. And then finally, we're going back in time. So this event just took place, what was this, 3 weeks ago? Anyway, this was awesome. This is GDevCon Sydney, a smaller event, but people are coming from all over a very large country as well as New Zealand. And I think it's awesome to see the same level of passion and engagement in Australia. So I wanted to celebrate them and thank them for hosting me and putting together such a fantastic event. I got lots of great feedback. So a lot of the same themes emerged in this forum around frameworks and design patterns. They actually had a 90-minute actor framework versus DQMH session, which was really insightful. Fabiola was sitting next to me, and we had a lot of fun listening to them debate the merits. We also had a presentation on workers. So, and a lot of academic presence there, talking about schools and students. So again, fantastic event. I hope to make the trek down for the next one, whenever that may be. I also want to comment, we hope to see GDevCons expand. I know we're working with a team that's talking about one in Latin America and possibly even India. So stay tuned. All right, so that's all I have to say on user groups. I want to fast forward to open source. So let's see. We happy to share that historically not shared comprehensive chat logs after the fact. Okay. Yeah, thank you, Christian, for taking point on that. Yeah, we will do our best to respond to any comments or questions that come up. Okay, so open source, what is it? Why are we doing it? Why should you care? A few key points. We have a lot of open source libraries on github.com/ni. So what is different? Like literally, I think there are hundreds of open source repos. The key difference here is that these two are actually the product source. That is to say, the source code that we ship in LabVIEW, in our ISO 9001 accredited product that people trust and use for really critical applications. We're leveraging those contributions from the community back into the shipping product. Why are we doing this? Well, we want to accelerate investment to new features. We want to accelerate responsiveness. We also want to capitalize on the fact that a lot of our users bring domain knowledge and expertise that is beyond our own when it comes to how it's used in test software applications. And by enabling them and giving them agency to bring that back into the product, that ensures that we're serving our users well. Now, it also forces us to ensure best-in-class practices for team-based collaboration at scale. So all the things we mentioned around diff reports and Git integration and CI/CD, those are directly being informed by what it takes to coordinate a global team of people collaborating on these repos. Now, collaboration on these does not mean you have to write source. Even you testing it, submitting issues or ideas, all of those are forms of collaboration and forms of collaboration that we definitely welcome. But we're also just getting started. We want to expand this quickly beyond these two initial repos. This is a snapshot of the spreadsheet that is very much a work in progress. We're hoping to align on which of these we will open source in the next few weeks. And you can see a lot of things on here. I'll comment. I think we have like 25 plus people that have said they want to be a part of the steering committee for gRPC. So that's definitely top of the list. There's lots of things we're reviewing internally to understand which of these we should invest ourselves into, because it's not a zero effort from us, right? We are not just throwing source over the wall and wishing the community luck. We are putting in contribution guidelines and testing activities so that if people engage and submit ideas, they have an understanding of what it takes to actually pull that back into the product. Because of course, we have to make sure that we ensure quality and that our contribution guidelines are adhered to. So that's a non-zero effort from us. But the one thing you can do is you can scan that QR code to engage with the team that's leading this. Sergio Valdarian from my team, a LabVIEW champion, LabVIEW architect with many years of experience at companies like Conrad and Averna, is actually the program manager of the open source initiative and is directly steering our recommendations on what we open source next. So please do engage with him on Discord. He's working closely with R&D on this effort, and we're really excited to see this effort expand and grow over time. All right. The other key point I want to make mention of is losing my voice too much. Is our changes to the certification program. Everything I just talked about speaks to the value and the vibrancy of the LabVIEW community, and we really want to reward and incentivize that. I know a lot of folks have lapsed their certification, both because the recertification exams became too problematic and user groups and other forums for recertification stopped meeting throughout the pandemic, et cetera. So few really exciting changes. If your certification is lapsed through the duration of this year, you can actually get recertified. So if it lapsed anytime since 2020, you can use the recertification point system to get your certification status active again. You can do that by presenting a user group, organizing a user group, attending a user group. We also intend to make to offer points for contributing to the open source repos, and to make it even easier, we've actually doubled the point value of these activities. So whereas it used to be 10 points for leading a user group and 5 for attending, those are now doubled for the duration of the year. So again, we want to reward and incentivize those of you that are really active in the community, make it possible and easier for you to get your certification status active again. Now, this is just for the duration of the year. Note that you just need 50 points to get active again. So if you organize a user group, that should be very, very easy to do before the end of the year. Let's see. Okay, next topic. One that I'm excited to give some key updates on. Academic. So we've had a lot of feedback from our customers, from our partners, that they're having challenges finding and hiring LabVIEW programmers. And it's no surprise that as we've pulled back and scaled down our academic engagement, that we have not been good stewards of the student community in recent years. And that is changing. And my team and the community program in particular are doing some key activities to really reinvigorate the pipeline of students that know both test and measurement and LabVIEW. It's funny too, it's not just a LabVIEW challenge, it's also a challenge of a lot of engineers straight out of school think they just design stuff, and they're not familiar with this concept of having to test things and the importance in the career path that exists around that. So we're trying to increase the awareness of instrumentation, automation, of course, the tools that enable that. So we are organizing these activities at universities all around the globe. Many of you are actively teaching LabVIEW at schools all around the globe. We celebrate that. And as with user groups, we are here to help in any way we can. We can ship out a crate of laptops. We can do that right now for Europe and North America. We have some hardware. We can ship out some compact DACs. We're also really looking to lean into CTI and some of those low-cost targets and make those available for schools, perhaps even giveaways that students can keep and use. As far as curriculum, we have our own hands-on material and courseware that we create. But of course, the CTI program has done a great job of creating some open source curriculum, and we want to elevate and use that wherever it makes sense. We are also documenting all of the champions, advocates, consultants, NI resources that can be fantastic instructors in those local communities. We're not going to fly somebody up from corporate, but the good news is we don't have to because there's a lot of LabVIEW enthusiasm the world over. We also want to bring in those hiring managers. They're saying, I'm trying to hire people, and let them speak to the value and the importance of LabVIEW in this field of study and the career potential. We brought in a local hiring manager to a recent event at CU Boulder, and I think that was awesome. I don't want to get the name of the company wrong, but they were one of those small space startups. And of course, pizza goes a long way towards enabling and exciting students. I do want to comment too on what we've done so far, because we've done these workshops at a handful of universities. But we've also gone to great lengths to understand the state of things with regards to the academic world. And I'm super excited by the sheer number of schools, professors, enthusiasts that are still using LabVIEW at significant scale the world over. So I have a snapshot of some of the latest data. It is incomplete, it's hot off the presses, but let's start with Europe. Across Europe, there's over 40 schools that we're aware of that are regularly and actively using LabVIEW in curriculum today. And I know that 4,000 number is low because I can point to two schools in particular, one in the north of Italy and the other in Switzerland, that are training no less than 1,000 students every year in LabVIEW. So we are looking to refine this understanding over time, because it's not just about running a bunch of workshops. It's about connecting hiring managers and customers with the schools that are using LabVIEW on a regular basis today. And again, it is a pretty significant and striking number. Here's a similar snapshot for the US. I don't mean to claim that we don't have work to do. Like we want to re-engage with schools where we may have pulled back from our engagement collaborations. But there's an impressive list of leading universities that are teaching thousands of students every year in test and measurement and in LabVIEW. And so if you find yourself struggling to hire somebody, my team is chronicling all of these schools, the professors, the contacts, the courses. Do reach out and we can help introduce you to folks. In some cases, it may be a redirection. Maybe you want to hire from this particular school and we don't have a contact, but a school down the road is actively teaching and using LabVIEW. And that's part of the value we can bring to the table in bridging this gap as we also look to increase the pipeline of students that are using LabVIEW. So that's just a quick snapshot, a quick update. I hope to come back to you this time next year with far larger numbers as we expand this program. I do want to celebrate those of you. I see Derek Bomarito and Steve Watts on the call. So, I mean, CTI is awesome. Also, I think Olivier and his efforts to do the markdown for the open source curriculum materials that are used for CTI. I mean, you guys are awesome. The things you do for the LabVIEW community should be celebrated, and I commend you for your efforts, and I hope to fully leverage it. I don't want to replace or compete with anything our community is doing. I want to complement and elevate wherever possible. So please come to me and let me know how we can better use your materials, support your efforts. Also, perhaps most important of all, if you are working with a school, if you're teaching students or you're interested in getting involved, please let me know. We have a program manager. Some of you may know her, Nikita Fallon, that runs this effort. And so Doriano, University of Bogota, Milan, Italy, looks weird. Oh, Bologna. Yeah, that is, so the data points are correct. My callouts, forgive my bad callouts. But I promise you both of those are schools that are actively teaching LabVIEW, and I can connect you with the contacts there if you're curious. But this is an invitation. Anyone here who's aware of or working with the university and wants our support and engagement, any of the resources you see here, or if you're trying to hire from a school and struggling to find the right talent or expertise, do reach out, let us know. That's the exact gap we're trying to bridge. You'll see in just over an hour. Oh, I guess that's a shameless plug for a session on CTI. That's awesome, Steve. Yeah, if you're curious to learn more about CTI, definitely go to his session. Okay. I did not do a good job of leaving time for questions, but I do have 6 minutes. So hopefully answering questions along the way was a better approach. Any comments, questions, feedback, concerns? Again, I love getting feedback and engagement with the community. What do you guys think? What do you want to see more of? What do you like? How can we help? I don't mind the awkward silence. Oh, Aaron, what about those of us that are new universities where there are too many of us nearby but still want to help? Yeah, I mean, Aaron, I know you're here in Austin. Austin, of course, is our backyard. So I'm not sure, right? We have a lot of people that want to help out in Austin. Uh, if your travels ever take you elsewhere, like I know I'll pick on Brian Powell as an example because he's also based in Austin and he has a lot of relationships with local universities, but he's traveling out to Boston here in a few weeks, I believe. And so he's going to be running a workshop in the Boston area at a few of the universities out there. So, he was going to be there anyway, and we sought to leverage that. Perhaps an idea like that might make a lot of sense. But, that's something we can brainstorm on. There's also other schools nearby besides UT Austin. Eric, some sort of open source test stand. Potentially, we're very focused on LabVIEW right now. But if there's a specific capability or tool set in test stand that you feel like if it was open source, you would be gung ho to work on, let us know. Um, if this goes well, we want to expand it further. Oh, VIPM for test stand. Well, that's a topic into itself because, of course, VIPM is a fantastic tool. We have our NI package manager, which is how we distribute our components and packages built from test stand. Dragon was recently released by JKI to help unify these two disparate package managers. Um, so, in a way, I think you would say we already have VIPM for test stand. It's NIPM. There's also nothing stopping you from putting test and artifacts into VIPM, but of course, it doesn't have the automated tooling for dependency traceability, et cetera. So, I mean, that's a topic into itself. Um, I know this is more about LabVIEW, but don't forget about us test and Verist. Yeah, no, we love test and Veristan users for sure, and hopefully the connected workflows and the focus on those interoperations speaks to that. So yeah, no, thanks for that feedback, Randy. Oh, Jordan, hey, Jordan, will NI provide sell a turnkey CI/CD solution in the near future? Well, so Jordan, CI/CD typically requires you instantiate a stack of software for your specific set of dependencies and use cases. First off, I don't think we're going to monetize it. I think we want to just give these tools and make them freely available. Of course, there is a full-fledged version of LabVIEW in that container, so there are some challenges with that regards to activation. But we effectively want to make it free for anybody that's already using it for development. And then how you set up your dependencies and instantiate it. I think for us, it's more a focus on the configuration workflow to enable that. And then it'll be a DIY solution because everybody's needs and dependency trees are different. All right, I know we're right at time. I hope you guys were excited about this update. I hope we're hitting on some of the key themes and areas of focus that I think the community has been advocating for in recent years. So, really, a lot of what my team is working on, a lot of what NI is working on, aims to be a reflection of what you have said you need more from us. So, if it is, we love hearing that. If you still see gaps or want to advocate for investments in other areas, please do let us know. And thank you guys all very much for your time today.